Hi everybody, I'm going to start talking now, but I'm not sure whether I've connected or not. It's really hard to tell. Hi, my name's Annabelle. I'm guest designing at the moment for StampAnniething, and the new release today is Annie's Garden, which are some really lovely detailed stamps to use for all kinds of cards. I am predominantly colouring in polychroma pencils. Hi Mindy, I can see you. And I'd like to be better with other things, but polychroma seem to suit me. So even though they're pretty slow to use, they are much easier to control than other things. So I think that makes them a nice way to colour. That if you've got some time and you want to enjoy it and you want to relax. I'm going to be colouring with polychroma pencils, and on the screen at the moment are the 5 pencils that I'm going to use today. Not very many. Hello everyone, hello Betty, hello Dana. I've chosen to use the LadyBugs and Clover set from the Annie's Garden group, and I'm going to be showing you how I colour the clover flowers. And I'm going to admit now that the technique for colouring clover flowers is the same technique as colouring fur and feathers, and once you know it for one thing, you'll be able to do everything else. So let me make sure I've said everything that I need to say to start with. It seems everyone can hear me, which is great. I have stamped my image onto smooth craft cardstock. Now, I can't tell you exactly where to get this one, however it is very similar to the, I always call it Nini Nana cardstock Desert Storm. It's very similar to that one. I don't think it's called Desert Storm either, but I'm hoping you understand from that what I mean. It's just a very smooth, probably smoother than you'd think for pencils, craft coloured cardstock. So to be honest, a smooth buff coloured card of any kind would probably just work the same. I'm not particularly strict on my cardstocks. I know some people have lots of preferences, but I don't. So if you want to do the same, I could recommend the Moon Rock and StampAnniething ink for printing it onto your card. So I do it in a paler colour than the actual image. If you're going to just stamp it normally in black, I do it paler, so you kind of get the no lines colouring technique, but it's not exact. You still have lots of guidance, and these stamps are great for giving you some guidance on where things go. So the first thing I would do is colour in anything that the flower is going to be on top of. So in this case, I've coloured the green bits of the stamp, as I would do that first because the bits of the flower are going to come over the top of the greenery. And I haven't coloured the ladybird because he is on top of the flower, so he's going to come after the flower. I hope that makes sense. Hello everybody in the comments. I am trying to look at that at the same time. I'm not very used to doing live, so please don't think I'm rude if I'm not quick to respond. Okay, so I'm going to tell you I'm going to be using an extremely sharp white pencil. If you're doing anything using fur technique, you're going to have to sharpen your white pencil a lot, maybe 4 or 5 times for the flower. It's a lot of sharpening. I am also using a completely standard little plastic pencil sharpener because unfortunately polychromas and pencil sharpeners don't mix well. They're not friends. When I'm set up, I always also have my electric rubber from Derwent, though other electric rubbers would obviously do, and I use a great big blusher brush as my flicking off the pencil department. Not the official thing, but works fine. Okay, so starting out, I'm going to wobble my camera viciously, apologies. I'm going to draw lines out from the image in a flicking motion, following the stroke directions here. So essentially, I've looked at a picture of the flower. This is the order that the, are they called petals on a clover flower? Come out from the centre, and I'm going to build up with the furthest part of the image first, so that'll be the edge of the flower. So let me pop it here. So I'm going to pull back towards me, fine strokes. Can you see them okay? Are they clear enough to be seen? Someone let me know in the comments if you can see them, because sometimes the white doesn't show up very well. You can see I've already slightly broken my nib off my pencil because it was so sharp. So yeah, I'm on the outer bit of the flower. I'm pulling back the white bits as I go in. So as I'm coming to the area that's nearer the person looking at the flower, they're the bits that are going to go on top. And I'm going in a slightly circular motion round. I can't tell if you can hear me. If anybody can hear me, pop me a message and let me know that you can see it. That would be great. So I'm turning my flower a little bit more because it's just easier when you're doing anything that involves strokes. And I'm going to do some more. I'm not going to worry about overlapping the ladybird. I can always rub those out afterwards. Keep going. And I'm just going to check that I can be heard. Right, okay. I'm going to guess I can be heard. Yeah, audio is perfect. Thank you very much, Betty. I'm just obviously on quite a big delay, but hopefully I'll be able to keep up a bit better now. Apologies for a moment's silence while I checked, but it would just be my luck for it to go off and me to keep talking and nobody be able to hear me. And anyway, right, so as you can see, my white pencil is already blunt, so I would sharpen again. I'm actually cheating today. I have bought some pre-sharpened white pencils to the event, apologies, but I thought you didn't want to watch me sharpening my pencils. So I'm going to use strokes again, pulling down. Furthest side of the flower gets done first. I'm building layers on top. It would work exactly like this with fur. What you'd have to do is follow the natural lines of the fur or flower with your lines, and it looks realistic as long as you follow sort of how nature does it. So checking I'm still on screen, keep going down, keep going in another layer, and then turn again for the final bit. And you can see this is why I coloured my green first, because these petals are going to go over it. So that's the first layer, and I would do that on white card even, because the polychromos form a sort of textured base when you do one layer, so you're making the next layers are going to look more realistic because your white layer went on first. Weird, but it works. Okay, so the next pencil I'm going to use is fuchsia, and I'm going to do exactly the same as I did with the white all over with the fuchsia. So once again, started on the outside, pull the layers back, and I turn the paper as I go, just because it makes it easier. There's no reason why you couldn't do the lines away from you if you found that more easy. But if you do it pulling towards, you tend to get the lightest, thinnest part of the flip on the outside, which looks more realistic, particularly with fur. We keep going round. So you can see how it's building up. Although I add lots and lots of layers, there's no reason why you have to. This would be a very quick way for getting a pretty realistic, fluffy looking flower with only a couple of layers of pencil. Which I think, you know, sometimes you don't have the time, do you, to spend an hour on a piece and you just want to get something out. So there you go. So you can see I've sort of got a bit of a middle of the flower, and then I'm radiating outwards as per my stroke directions. So my next stage would be to use a slightly darker colour, and I'm going to use magenta, and I'm going to focus more of the darker colours now on the shaded area. So I'm lazy, I always have my light source coming from the same direction, which is top left, and if you do have this, you'd realise there's a bit of shadow underneath the ladybird here, pretending to be a circle. There's a bit of shadow under him, and then the whole right side of the flower would be kind of shaded and a bit underneath. So when I'm doing my darker strokes, I'm going to add more on the darker side of the flower or anywhere that there needs to be a shadow. So my darker colour at the moment is magenta. So I'm going to include small amounts of magenta on the lighter side, giving a little bit more depth to this side without going too dark. Turn. I know it's going to be a bit more underneath the ladybird. A little bit in this area. And then quite a bit darker and closer together on this side. Remember, if you've lost the point on your pencil, you really need to sharpen it again. Because once you go thicker, it's quite hard to recover from the situations. It's better just to keep sharpening. And then in this bit in the middle, which is going to be a bit darker, I'm just going to pop a few more lines. Okay? Does that all seem okay? Are we with the programme? Do we understand what's going on? Now, because it's looking a bit, sorry for the wobble, bitty, as in it's all a bit crunchy looking, I would then do a layer of white on top of this to kind of soften the overall look. You don't have to do this. However, it does make a bit of a difference to the finished result. So I'm going to just quickly do that. Exactly the same technique, absolutely no changes. I bet you're all miserable that there's absolutely no magic to doing this. It just is layers of lines, or scribbling as I also like to call it. So I'm going to keep going around with my white pencil until it sort of blends it, but you don't lose the light and dark portions that are the texture. Just move it back in the middle again a little bit. I hope my focus isn't too annoying. I know it does change a little bit. I need to find a way to colour without wobbling anything. That's a general rule, I think. Okay. So, I don't know, can you see that it's sort of softened it and made it look a little bit more natural? I'm not sure. Do you think? I am going to go for, I would usually, now I've softened it, go in with the same colours again. So I'm going to quickly do that. However, you're going to have to wait for a minute while I sharpen my pencil. This is very realistic colouring for you, because mainly I sharpen pencils. It's a big part of my colouring. Okie dokie. Here we go. So back in with the fuchsia. And just build up another layer on top. I am actually a really slow colourer, but I realise I do this bit quite quickly. However, I'm using relatively firm pressure as I go round to add the strokes. I'll move across a bit again. And turning again. So if you were going to add, say, fur to one of the bees on the bumblebee and rosy stamp, which is absolutely gorgeous, I would use this same technique for colouring the yellow and the black on the bumblebee. So it's in fact very versatile. And I never knew it would work for clover flowers before I saw this stamp, but it seems to work fine for it. So there we go. Got another layer on top. Can you see a difference between the layers? I'm not sure. Right, okay, I'm going to sharpen another pencil, apologies for the delay, of my darker, deeper pink colour. Good job done. So, not too much on this side, but a little bit. I quite like the centre to look a bit darker. And then a little bit more on this side because it's in the shade. Okay, I'm not sure because it's so bright. Can you see it's darker on the right side than the left side? Just a little bit, but it makes a difference to the actual finished picture. Just gives it a bit more dimension, I think. And having had a look at clover flowers, they're actually not quite fuchsia and magenta colours. They've got a bit more of a red or a bit of a, what's the colour? Like a maroon hue, I think. So I'm going to pop in just a little bit of dark red to take away, so there's a purpley hue to things, which isn't quite right. So I'm just going to add a little bit of dark red to kind of help with that issue. It actually doesn't take that much to make a bit of a difference. Well, you can see the dark red quite clearly. It seems to show it better than the pinks. So I'm just doing, remember, outer edge first, work into the middle so you keep going in the same direction all the way around, and then a little bit of dark red on our darkest spot. Okay, that would be my principal layers for doing anything. As on fur, I would probably pop in and do a few white highlights again on the left hand side. So I'm going to press pretty hard and add a few highlights on this side. You could also use a white gel pen, whichever your preferred one is, because that obviously does stand out but does create a bit of a different look. So I'm just going to add a few more white highlights in quite hard strokes onto this side. I've broken my pencil nib many times there, but I hope you can see what I'm doing. Okay. I am a fellow Englishwoman, thank you for spotting, and apologies for my very Midlandy accent. So I need to show another technique for defining the edges of your fur. I could do with a name for it. If you can think of a name for the technique, that would be great. I don't know what I should call it. It's kind of adding in negative space around the edge. So I'm going to have a flip with my giant blusher brush. Ooh, and do a wobble because I'm not used to having the camera in the way. And I'm going to define an edge. And it is, you're feeding back into the negative space to create a shadow. And to do it quite quickly and quite messily, and it defines an edge. So I think the best thing to do is to show you, because I'm not sure quite how to describe it. But you go in at the edge and you put in a slightly darker line and a bit of a scribble maybe, and you start to make an edge on it. That's quite dark at the moment, but it's probably better for showing you. On this side, obviously the darkness isn't going to matter at all because this is my shade side. Oh, sorry, I need to go a bit up. So we're going to go darkness into the edge, and a little bit of scribble to define our edge. And then definitely we're going to need to do that under the ladybird, because I haven't really got much shadow underneath him, and I could do with making some. So I'm going to use the same technique under the ladybird with the pencil. So now the ladybird's got a little bit of shadow underneath him. I would, unless you want the flower overlapping him, I would quite happily now just electric rubber that bit off before I coloured in the ladybird. I don't think he needs overlapping bits, but you could leave overlapping bits if you wanted. Okay, I think I would then go in with 177. So this is going to be my darkest colour for the flower. You could use black. There's no problems. I avoid black quite a bit, but there's absolutely no reason to avoid it. I'm going to do my cutting in negative space. See, I really do need a name for it. Technique, but in slightly darker colour on the shaded side of the flower. I need a good name for this, don't I? Please somebody have one that I can use. So I'm using my dark brown on this side in a sort of scribbly fashion, and I'm also going to pop a little bit in the centre so we can see where the centre is, and then I'm going to use the brown again a little bit underneath the ladybird again. So that is now, you can see the shade quite clearly on that bit for how that's worked out. I did realise though when doing a clover flower that it actually has sort of little clumps of, I'm presuming it's the actual individual flowers, but it also has a sort of a spotty finish to it. So to recreate that, I think the first thing I used was magenta, which I'm just sharpening now, which I realise you can't see, but that's what I'm up to. And then to give it a sort of pattern, I made little V shapes in a bit of a pattern as I went round. Obviously you don't have to do this bit, but I thought it actually added a bit of texture and a bit of a realism to the finished flower. So if you're doing a pattern and then realise that your pattern's not going to show up on your darker area, switch colour to a darker slightly darker colour, so I'm going brown, 177, and I'm going to continue the pattern round into the slightly darker side. It's quite subtle. We're doing it quite triangularly because that also fits in with the directions of our fur, and you see it's kind of made a bit of a spotty effect. So it's up to you. If you don't like that bit, oh, very reflective. If you don't like that bit, don't bother doing it. If you want to do it, and then perhaps add a little bit of dark at the darkest points of the spots, which would be the furthest in bits of the spots, that's fine. And then I would also then go over with a little bit of white again. So here we go, a little bit of white. And add a little bit of white. Is it getting there? Can I make it so it's less shiny? Can you see that all right? Does it look okay? What else would I do to it from this point? Well, first thing I'd do is probably get rid of the bit on the ladybird, so I'm going to do that. Do a quick turn. Ready? Not sure if you can hear the hum. Sounds a little bit dentisty. I hope it doesn't trigger anyone's dentistophobia. So the ladybird reappears again. Sorry for the wob up. I'll just brush off my rubber debris. And I think that's it. Is there anything else that I should talk about on how I do it? Would you like to see me do some of the layers again? I could do a layer on another flower again if you'd like to see how I do the white layer. I don't think I don't know, would I do anything else to it? I'd probably go in with dark at the bottom. You know, the negative space type thing, if we did that at the bottom, where the, you could do this in green, obviously, because it's probably green underneath in real life, but you sort of use the negative shadow technique on the bottom of the flower. So you're actually colouring in the gap to make it blend better. And then of course you could do over the top of that some whites. If you you might find there's a problem when you're doing perhaps your white layer that you're dragging colour into every stroke. So if I stroke over the green, my next stroke is going to have a bit of green at the top of it. To overcome that, it looks weird but works really well. Do a stroke and a scribble, a stroke and a scribble. So if you're doing something stripy, as mentioned, bumblebee, you can you will drag the black into the yellow if you keep going upwards up the bumblebee. So you do a stroke in black and then clean it, or stroke in yellow and then clean it to make different layers and none of the dragging issue. But if you did have a dragging issue, I don't know how can I explain a dragging issue. Let's do a little bit of brown, and as you pull down, you're getting the brown in. Can't make it happen, but yeah, you can get little brown bits at the top. For that, I sometimes use a it's actually from Faber-Castell as well. It's like a rubber on the end of a pencil. Looks weird, but if you've got like little dots that you want to get rid of, it's extremely effective for just removing the top layer of debris, so you can get rid of any colours that you... It's not an amazing rubber in lots of other ways, but it's very good for taking colour out of dragged pencil marks. So I use that as well as my electric rubber. Right, I think that's it for me. I highly recommend this set of stamps. They're all absolutely beautiful. My blog is cartwaycards.wordpress.com, and on there I've got a gallery of all my cards for StampAnniething, and I've also got a post for today, for now, with all the cards that I made using all 4 of the beautiful stamps. I think they look really nice. They were really fun to do. It really challenged me to leave my comfort zone. If anybody wants to ask me anything, feel free to message me on Facebook, no problems at all. And this should be rewatchable at some point, so it's hopefully interesting. I'm going to load up my pictures onto Cartway Cards Instagram if you want to follow me on there. And I'm really looking forward to the other videos, which are lives, which are later today. I really want to see what other people do with the stamps. It's really exciting, and I hope you can join us then too. Okay then, thanks very much. Bye everyone.